All right, guys. Well, today we're going to continue looking at Chapter 8 in managing stress. And it's so key for us to look at how we manage stress because, well, again, it's something that we got to deal with almost every day, and it's not going away anytime soon. So, how do we manage it so we can live our best life and be optimally well? Well, here's a quick little intro for you. So, there was an old man, and he lived alone in Minnesota. He wanted to dig up his garden and plant potatoes in it, but it was very hard work and it was going to be stressful work on him. His only son, who would have helped him, however, was in prison. The only old man wrote a letter to his son and mentioned his situation. The letter said, "Dear son, I'm feeling pretty bad and stressed out because it looks like I won't be able to plant my garden of potatoes this year. I hate to miss doing the garden because your mother always loved planting time. I'm just getting too old to be digging up a garden plot. If you were here, all my troubles would be over. I know you would dig the plot for me if you weren't in prison. Love, Dad." Shortly, the old man received this telegram note back to him. "For heaven's sakes, Dad, don't dig up the garden! Exclamation point, exclamation point. That's where I buried the guns." Well, at 4 a.m. the next morning, a dozen police officers showed up and dug up the entire garden without finding any guns. Confused, the old man wrote another note to his son telling him what had happened and asked him, "Well, what do I do next?" His son's reply was, "Go ahead and plant your potatoes, Dad. It's the best I could do for you from here." So, stress leads us to often think that we can't overcome our problems, but maybe sometimes with some ingenuity, we can certainly do that. I first want you to take a look at this video and maybe see how it relates to our life and stress. Because eventually, like the bag earlier this week, we will crack if we don't handle our stress. Okay, so when we have our stress going on in life, I think it's first and foremost important for us to put a name on it. That's why you did your top 10 stressors earlier this week. And so we need to identify those stressors in our life and make sure we can then move forward by putting a name to what we have in our life in terms of stress and anxiety. So you can do it a few different ways. You can say it. I mean, verbally say it out loud. Say it to yourself, tell a friend, tell a trusted person, because when you can say it, you can then embrace it and know that this is something that I have to work on before it manages me instead of me managing it. You can write it, whether it be writing it in your notes in your phone or writing it on paper and putting it in your room. Or, like you just did this past week, you write your top 10 stressors out, and therefore you can identify and you really think through what it is to you. Same thing with typing it, because you're thinking about what is the things that stress me out or give me anxiety. And then I encourage you to share it. Now, you shared your top 10 stressors with me, but beyond just me, it's so important you have that person or people in your life that you feel like you can go to when things get stressful, when you get anxious, and you can share with them and say, "Hey, this is a stressor of mine." And so they know it and they can help you when they realize it's around you and you are being engulfed in it. And so it's important we know that, because if people don't know what stress you out, they can't be of assistance to make sure you are at your best. So look at those things. So a couple things to identify your stressors. We looked at those those traits, those categories that would be involved with stressors. One would be life events. Maybe there's a life event of change, moving. Maybe there's a life event of someone going away from your family, or there's a life event of just maturation where, hey, I'm graduating high school, going on to a job, or I'm getting married, I'm getting a child born to me. Oh, that's just me, okay. But life events certainly can be a huge stressor in our life. The second thing that causes us a lot of stress is the physical stressors, whether it be the things that we actually have to be engaged with, whether it be a school assignments, whether it be actual lifting things, moving objects, using our body to manipulate something. That puts stress on ourselves, whether you knew it or not. And sometimes we hoard onto that and we're not able to release it. Okay? So in the physical stressors, let's identify those. What things cause us are in our physical body some unwanted stress and anxiety. And then third, the daily hassles. Unfortunately, the daily hassles are things that we can't always put a name on all the time because we can't plan for it. They just happen out of the blue. Like all of a sudden, in the middle of your day, you get a pass that gets you out of your routine. You have to go meet with a certain person, or you know what, you were planning on doing this weekend, but the weather came around and it rained and you couldn't go do the outdoor activity you wanted to do. So the daily hassles that lead to our stress and anxiety are often the hardest to overcome because we can't plan for them. We can't always anticipate them coming. But how do we manage them when they do arise? So those below are some questions you might want to ask yourself. Because if you can ask yourself these questions, you can maybe put that stress and anxiety in perspective and make sure you realize, is this something that I really need to take a second look at? Or is this something I need some help to get a handle on? What am I doing? Because ultimately, you need to control the controllables. Those are things that you have 100% over. You don't have 100% control over the weather. You don't have 100% over what somebody else might say or do, or you don't have control over how a situation might end up. You just can't because there's too many moving parts in a situation. But you can have control over your effort, your attitude, the words that you use, the actions that you have following what somebody says or does. You have complete control over that. And if you do take control of the controllables, now you can manage and put an end to that stress and anxiety a little bit more than if you try to control everything. I wish we could control everything, but unfortunately, we cannot. So maybe consider identifying these stressors and making it easier on you. And you look at some of these people right here. This is how we can maybe manage that stress and give us some help. Maybe we think I go to substance abuse, or I go to food, or I'm going to try to use sleep as my way of getting out. Or I need to do some exercise, some movement. So there's some things that we can do to help ourselves. And so once we identify our stressors, let's now manage it and work effectively to overcome it. We can't eliminate it, but we can have some management strategies that are at our fingertips, okay? So the first one, refusal skills. And that's simply being able to say no and remove ourselves from situations where we know it's going to stress us out or give us anxiety. We have to be able to do that. Too many people get into trouble because they say yes to everything, or they don't speak up for themselves and say, you know what, this isn't good for me. I need to remove myself from this situation, or I need to refuse myself from this conversation. I need to remove myself from this relationship. And by not doing that, we give us more stress, more anxiety. So having refusal skills will help eliminate that. Second is planning a response. Okay, this is super important because if all you do is say, well, when stress and anxiety comes, I'll just handle it in the moment. We won't. We always go back to our default. And for some of us, our default is getting angry. For some of us, our default is running. For some of us, it's trembling and it's having a panic attacks. So if we have a planned response, now we have a go-to. Hey, when I get stressed out, I'm going to do deep breathing. When I get stressed out, I'm going to talk to this person. When I get stressed out, I'm going to read this book. If you have a planned response set in your mind, you will help eliminate some of those stresses and stressors that happen. Okay, especially when it comes to big events like tests or games or big performances that you have going on. You need to plan in those moments, in a test, in a game, when you're confronted with a stress or a stressor, how am I going to react? Third, you need to get sleep. It's so important. Okay, there's a reason I have an exclamation mark next to it, because if you don't get your sleep, which is the best recovery you can ever do for your whole being, you are going to be at more stress and amp up your anxiety. So I like this quote. This is Matthew Walker. He's a neuroscientist, a college professor, and he even looks at sleep science, okay, the science of sleep and how it impacts our whole being. And so he said, based on the weight of probably now about 10,000 empirical scientific studies, so basically in layman's terms, just a bunch of data, the number of people who can survive on 6 hours of sleep or less without showing any impairment, rounded to a whole number and expressed as a percent of the population, is 0. Again, it doesn't mean you can't move, doesn't mean you can't somewhat think, it doesn't mean you aren't going to be able to be awake and be somewhat alert. But the key is without showing any impairment, like it's the same, like you are at your very, 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 very best. No one is at their very best. 0% of the population is at their very best when they try to survive on 6 hours or less on an annual basis of sleep. Bottom line. And so if we do that, if we get our sleep, we help eliminate the stress and the anxiety because we allow our body to recover and regenerate those positive brain waves going through our mind. Fourth is exercise, okay? And that simply just means move. Okay, we don't have to necessarily go for that mile-long run. We don't have to necessarily lift weights or do push-ups. But if we move, we get out walking, we get engaged in some form of movement, twisting, and body action. If we get our muscles involved, we're going to help eliminate the stress because we don't want to be wound up so tight that eventually we break. You think of like a spaghetti noodle. If it's so tight and wound up, it takes a little tear, a little pressure for it to break down. That is us if we don't move and we don't get ourselves more fluid and smooth. So take a look at the survey the APA did, where nearly half the people's stress in their life increased over in a year. Okay, and when they did exercise, they actually found that those people's stressors started eliminating themselves and started regulating in terms of the extent it had on their body and well-being. Okay, eat properly is another one. So those are some examples there below of things you could eat that help eliminate stress, because when we're so hopped up on high processed foods, well, that's affecting our brain waves. That's affecting the way we think. It really does. And that's why we have to take ownership of the food we have, and why we touched on that so big in our previous section. So maybe you try some of these foods that are going to be better for your brain, that help you get better sleep, that help you move, and help you have a better response to when stress comes. And then finally, avoid substance use. So this is a big thing. People get stressed out, they get anxious. What do they typically do? They go to the bottle, they go to the pills, they go to the drink. So yes, a lot of people want to go there, and it's a short-term solution, meaning it's going to alleviate maybe some of the stress or alleviate the anxiety or put it on pause for a quick second or for a night, even for a day, even for a week or a weekend. But it's a short-term solution. It's not a long-term solution. Those stressors, those anxiety strategy, or those anxiety things in our lives, they're going to come back. They just are suppressed for a little bit of time. And then when you have substance use, it blocks your neurotransmitters. So again, that's the false illusion of when someone is on certain drugs, they feel like they are powerful. They feel like all their stress has gone away. They feel like they are confident. But what it turns into is those neurotransmitters then being blocked, and then once they come down from that substance use, they end up feeling more depressed, more anxious, and have more stress levels, which then turn them going back to the bottle, back to the pills, back to the drinks. So it's then a continuous cycle that is not a good strategy to use. So these are some things that maybe you try in your own life to help you with your stress and anxiety and managing it. Stress skills are important because these are skills that help you as an individual handle the stress in a healthful and effective way. Not just handle it and push it to the side, but be healthy about it to make sure your wellness is being benefited from it and it's effective. If it's not effective in helping you manage those stressors or those anxiety levels that you have, it's not doing its job. And we need to find another method. We need to find a new strategy. We need to find a new alternative. Otherwise, it's going to be like that bag that eventually has so much pressure that it explodes. So if you are doing things that are effective, you need to keep doing those things. If they aren't effective, they aren't helping you, eliminate them right now. Okay? So we need to make sure we're giving the thumbs up to the positive things in life that are helping us eliminate those stressors and anxiety levels, and even try to redirect it. So redirecting for stress management means, you know what, I'm getting really anxious and angry because of what somebody said, what somebody did to me. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go journal about it, or I'm going to go run, or I'm going to count to 5 and think of 5 things using my 5 sentences that help me. So a lot of people use this. So when they get anxious or they get stressed, think of something to smell, think of a taste, think of something I can touch, think of something I can see, picture a beautiful positive image in your head. Use that to manage and redirect the stress that just tried to come in your life, but I'm going to get rid of it by focusing on something else, okay? Redirecting it in a positive way, okay? Because if we take it on in a negative way, now those stresses add up. Those anxiety levels start increasing. Finally here, our relaxation response. That's the state of calm that can be reached if one or more relaxation techniques is practiced regularly. So that's why breathing is so important, exercising is so important, sleeping. All those skills are so important because then we trigger our minds to go to that relaxing state of mind and control when we need to. If we never practice it, we can never get there when we want to. And that means the stress and anxiety starts taking over our lives. But if we practice it, we have a right and ready response when it comes to relaxing that we can take our minds and bodies to, okay? At the end of the day, I want you to choose positivity. And it's easier said than done, certainly. But positivity in this world should be currency. It's that important. If we spread more positivity into things, then we're going to get a better result. We're going to get more for what we pay for. If we spend negative currency, we're going to get diminished results and diminished returns. So that means using positive words. I'm fully convinced that the words we use, if they are positive, help us eliminate the stress and anxiety because, well, we just naturally believe that I am strong, or I am confident, I am a hard worker, or I am smart. Instead of thinking, I'm not smart, I'm not worth it, I'm not able to do this because I'm not skilled enough. Okay, so positive words play a huge influence. Think about like when you get a new pair of shoes, or if you eventually get a new car. It seems like every time you look for something, you find it. So what will happen is you'll get a new pair of shoes, and all of a sudden you'll be walking around the hallways or just around, and you'll see somebody else wearing a similar shoe. And then you'll see another person wearing that shoe, or you see another person wearing that shoe, and it's like, man, did everyone just get this pair of shoes because I got the pair of shoes and they heard about it and they all went to the store the same day I did? No, it's just because you are more aware now of the same thing that is around you because you focused in on it so much. You focused in on that shoe you just bought, and so now you see it happening all around you. So if you choose positivity, if you think of positive things and go searching for that, you're going to be more aware of the positive things happening around you, and therefore your stress levels and anxiety levels go down. If you are making yourself more aware of the negative things, the terrible things that are happening in your life, well, guess what? Your brain and your body are going to naturally find more negative and terrible things to add up in your life. It's just how it works. It really is. So you can play a great brain trick on your mind by choosing positivity in your life. This is something you might not know what it means. A 1 in 400 trillion. Well, those are the odds of you being a human being. Yes, 1 in 400 trillion. So when you have the stress and anxiety in your life, when you feel like everything is up against you and you can't get out and you have no escape, remember that you are a living miracle. Just to be a human being is an absolute miracle. And the odds were stacked against us being a human being. Okay, you can go through all the reproductive things and look at all how obviously babies are made and this and that, but 1 in 400 trillion, that's the odds of you being a human being. So in essence, you won the genetic lottery. And so when you have tough times, when stress is high, when you are anxious about things or people in your life, remember, the odds were against you even being a human being. You're alive. You're breathing. And if you're breathing, you're still able to move. And if you're still able to move, you're still able to fight and manage this stress and overcome it. That you aren't susceptible to the stressors anymore, that you can go handle it and make sure that you overtake it and not let the stress and anxiety be anything that puts pressure on you in your life. 1 in 400 trillion, remember that. I believe in all of you. I believe in the great things that stress and anxiety can teach us because they aren't going away. It hits everybody. Stress and anxiety knows no single boundary. It knows no race, knows no age, knows no gender, ethnicity, you name it. It hits everybody. And so when we're talking about managing it, remember that you can overcome it. You are worth it in every single way. And I want to be there for you when you maybe have some of those stressors, because I've had stressors, I've had anxieties, and we can work together on this to be better and overcome it. I want you to finish by taking up a look at this clip here and looking at what she has to say about stress and stress management, and puts it in a kind of comedic way. And I think she might give you some tools that you can use in your own life.
I want you to think about the last time you had a really good laugh. Same sea of blank faces I see from coast to coast. We're gonna do a little research, because boy, NACU's all about research and education. And so what we're gonna do here is, on the count of 3, if you're physically able, I'll ask you to stand. If not, do this from a seated position. But on the count of 3, stand, and then facing me, I want you to just take a deep breath. And then I want you to put the shape of a smile on your face. For the purpose of this research, this does not have to be a real smile, okay? I will give you one last set of instructions, and then you can sit down and groan loudly, and we will give you the reasons for this research. All right, count of 3. 1, 2, 3, stand. Take a deep breath. Now put the shape of a smile on your face. And I need to see teeth. I don't care if they're yours, okay? Now, last set of instructions. Turn and make eye contact with the victim to your left or right. And now sit down, groaning loudly. This is great. This is great. All right, 2 things here. 1, now everybody has a tool. If you had to leave right this minute, and please don't, but if you had to leave right now, you would have a tool. The next time you go back to work and you're sitting at your desk and you think, if one more person puts one more thing on my desk, I'm going to have to snatch them bald-headed. Now all you have to do is, facing your entryway, doorway, or hallway, sitting or standing, just do this. Because the next person to walk in and see you looking like this, they're going to know that now is not the time to bother you. You can play with your pain. You can be intentional. Doing little exercises. Here's another one that you may have known, you just forgot you knew it. Hold out your right thumb, forefinger about 1 inch apart. Close your left eye. Now find someone's head across the room. Bring your thumb and forefinger together and squish. They don't even know they were hit. Oh. It's amazing. It's amazing.
So maybe you're able to take what she showed you and maybe use it in your own life today or right now with somebody in the room. No judgment, all right? Here's what you have for the rest of the hour. Here's your assignment. I need you, after watching this Lesson 3 video of Chapter 8, I need you to identify which stress management strategy we talked about earlier in this lesson video that you would want to try and use in your own life. And just why would you choose that one? Out of the ones I gave you, which one would you choose and why? Finally, after you've done that in a text box or a Google document, I want you to open up the link that's provided for you. On that site, I want you to choose something that sticks out to you, that you find appealing. Look at it, and then find 3 pieces of information you learned about the concept of laughter and stress. Because if we smile, we laugh a little more, hey, it might be a stress reliever for you, okay? So again, I need you to identify a stress management style we talked about in this video and why you would choose it, okay? And then find that link and tell me 3 pieces of information about stress and laughter and its connection. If you have questions about managing it, or if you have a question about, hey, I'm trying to manage it by doing this, what do you think? Let's talk. I'd love to be there to support you and give you some information if at all possible. Again, you are a priority in my life because, well, I don't have a kid yet, so you are somewhat a kid to me, and I want you to feel like you have the ability to grow and develop and get out of any stress or anxiety you might be carrying. Have a great rest of your day. I'll see you tomorrow. Get a little bit better today.